Well, I want to thank everyone for being here, and I think you heard a lot about what I think on a variety of issues, so I think we should just turn the floor over to you to ask questions.
Mr. Mayor, today Governor Cuomo held a press conference while you were testifying. He was asked about your push for permanent mayoral control. He said that he was looking to just renew it for 3 years, and it's something that should be reviewed every few years. I was wondering if you could respond to that, and also what you make of the governor, while you are testifying, rolling out a plan to expand universal pre-K to 3-year-olds, obviously one of your signature initiatives.
I applaud him for focusing on pre-K. On the question of mayoral control education, I think we've now had a decade to examine this issue, and I think the jury has come back resoundingly. This is something that works. It's necessary. The bad old days were the bad old days. There were a lot of problems in the previous system. There were some good things, too. It wasn't, black and white, but it was very troubled. You could not move a reform agenda under the previous system. There was a lot of corruption. I always believed that mayoral control was a better idea. I thought it required some real balance, and I have seen now in practice that done right, it allows the education system to move forward. So I think there is no question that we can't go backward. It's part of why I would say it should be made permanent at this point. You can't go backward. We can't go to where we were before. It was a failed system previously. So that should be off the table. And I certainly have not heard another model proposed. If it's not the old school board system and it's not mayoral control, is there some third way that no one's discussed? I don't know of it. I think there's a real consensus that mayoral control has been a success. In fact, we're only just beginning to realize the potential under the system, and it comes with perfect accountability. The mayor is absolutely positively accountable to people, and by virtue of elections, the people get to act on their views. So I would say it's been proven and it should be made permanent.
If I could just follow up.
Yeah.
A lot's been relationship
Excuse me.
with the governor recently. He called it the best modern political relationship in history. And I'm wondering if this is another example. He was speaking while you were speaking. You've been asked about this before. He was asked today whether it was an effort to one up on your presentation. Do you feel that way? Do you feel any tension at all? Regarding him immediately responding to mayoral?
I respect the question. I'm not interested in a discussion of personalities. I respect the governor. I've known him for 20 years. We've gotten a lot done together. We don't agree on everything. I think that's well established, but we still have gotten a lot done, and that's really what matters. Sally.
Two questions. You talked about a number of areas where you'd like to see increased funding from the state. Do you know if there are any areas where they cut their funding to New York City from last year? And the other question was, have you gotten any clarity on education funding yet?
Well, I'm going to ask what you mean by the second question. On the first question, on homeless aid, as we said, a $22 million cut as we're in the middle of the greatest homelessness crisis we've ever had, which makes no sense whatsoever.
And any others that any other agencies or areas where they cut the
Foulahan, you can join in. Let's have a special guest on the show. Gene Foulahan, ladies and gentlemen.
So it was the homeless, emergency assistance for families. $22 million this year. It grows every year.
The cut grows.
And then the mayor we also raised New York 4 has us picking up. It's effectively a cut because it has us picking up a 50% share when the state traditionally picked up 100% of the operating cost, and we split the capital cost traditionally.
So
and no clarity on. You mean, is there a distribution yet on the school aid? There is not.
No.
Still waiting for the reforms and whether the legislature approves.
There's no distribution on school aid.
We can't speak to the Albany process. We can only say there is not a proposal, and that's unusual. But on the previous point, we're dealing with an affordable housing crisis of immense proportions that will affect the entire future of the city, the metropolitan region, and the state. On the New York 4 proposal, the state's actually going backwards, as you heard, in terms of the kind of support, both in terms of number of units and the operating funds. We're dealing with the greatest homelessness challenge we've ever faced. The state's going in the wrong direction on that $22 million. That's a real problem, and that has to be addressed going forward. Bridget.
Mayor, you talked about how investing in infrastructure would provide jobs and economic benefits, specifically talking about helping do more work for the MTA. contribution to the MTA is lower than it has been in the past. Can you explain
Sure.
why that is? And
We've just gotten started. Again, the MTA contribution will come under the 10-year capital plan, and as I've said, that's not going to come out until April. So what you saw in the preliminary was, generally speaking, about our expense budget, not our capital budget. We will treat the MTA issue. And I said it, certainly that number is going to grow when we look at the 10-year plan.
Mayor, if you could just on the news today, I know you're aware of these arrests that were made in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Potentially trying to join ISIS. Just any more information you can give us about that?
I want to speak about the larger challenge we face in terms of terrorism, in terms of ISIS, but just on this specific matter, needless to say, this is a very sensitive situation. And the FBI has taken the lead here. The working relationship between the city and NYPD and FBI is very, very close. I've enjoyed a very close working relationship with the FBI from Director Comey on down. But this is a very sensitive situation, and I think it is the kind of situation where you understand when I say, please refer all questions to the FBI as the right way to handle something of this sensitivity. On the broader front, we all take the threat of ISIS very, very seriously. The vigilance levels that we maintain every day are our best shield, but we're going to continue to deepen our anti-terrorism capacity. And I think so much of what we're trying to do is making sure that not only do we have the number of officers on anti-terror duty that we need, the training, the equipment, et cetera, but that we're also constantly deepening our relationship with communities all over the city, so there's a flow of information. Because again, without going into any details of this case, that flow of information about where individuals may be who are being tempted by ISIS is crucial to stopping these plots. Jonathan?
Mr. Mayor, two questions. First, do you still plan on meeting with the governor today?
Yes.
The second question is, this is now the second time you've delivered testimony up here. I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how things have changed from a year ago. Did you feel more comfortable in the setting? What lessons did you learn from a year ago? And also, how has Albany changed in that year?
Okay. On the yes, I felt more comfortable. It's obviously a lot easier doing something the second time. I thought it was a very good dialogue. You know, I was very comfortable that a lot of people were raising serious and important issues, and I hope I was able to shed light. I'm not sure a lot has changed in Albany, Blasio, because, as I've said many times, if you're talking about the election actually didn't change the details of the legislative makeup a whole lot. But I thought it was a good and respectful session. And I think what is clear is that when you talk about the role the city plays in the state economy and the future of this city, of this state, and where we're going, I think there's actually a fair amount of bipartisanship on that. That's an area where everyone gets very serious because, you know, when I talk about our infrastructure gap, our problems we're facing in terms of affordable housing or education, I do think people across the board understand that these are serious issues that affect us all. So I thought there was a good, honest, bipartisan discussion on that.
On the circumcision issue, what is your response to critics who say that the city is now taking a step backwards on a big health issue?
I care profoundly about the health of children. You know, for 8 years, I was the chairman of the General Welfare Committee in the City Council. I worked constantly on issues of children's health and welfare, and particularly how to avoid child injury and child fatality. So this is something I'm very, very devoted to. I have said this publicly before. The policy of the previous administration achieved precious little. It was rejected by community members. It wasn't implemented. It wasn't enforced. It was unenforceable, in fact. So, you know, in the end, the previous administration got to say they did something, but it really didn't, in my view, do enough to protect our children. What we're doing, conversely, is it starts in the hospital, and the relationship between the mother and her doctor and the hospital in which she has the child, information provided right there about the practice, including the option for the mother to say she wants to opt out, the opportunity to talk to health department officials and get more information. That's a sea change right there. And by taking away a part of the policy that people in the community felt was onerous and disrespectful of their traditions, we have gained a very firm commitment, which I absolutely believe in. I know a lot of the people involved, I absolutely have faith in them, that if we see any wrongdoing by an individual, that there will be a joint effort between community leaders and the administration to follow up and ensure that that individual is no longer in a position to be a part of that ritual. So I think this is a great step forward for the health and welfare of our children. I think it's based on the real world realities of a community that the city needs to relate to respectfully.
Is your agenda hampered this year because Republicans won control of the Senate? Republicans who were not happy to see you campaign aggressively for Senate Democrats last autumn?
Well, I'm a Democrat. I understand there's a certain history in New York State, but allow me to make a rather straightforward point. I'm a Democrat. As a Democrat, I would like to see Democrats win elections. I think Republicans would like to see Republicans win elections. I don't find that particularly surprising. I think that's normal, and we should all be able to work together even though we pursue what we believe is right philosophically. The fact is that the Senate was dominated by Republicans last year. It's dominated by Republicans this year. That hasn't changed. But I still believe we can work together on serious issues.
You don't worry about your agenda being blocked by Republicans this year?
I don't think it's fundamentally changed. I think there were, look, I wanted a tax on the wealthy for pre-K. It was my number one issue. It was my signature issue. It was my number one campaign platform plank, and the Republicans in the Senate were adamantly opposed last year. I understood that. I understand there's going to be some areas where there's a philosophical disagreement. But I don't think the foundational reality has changed. And again, I think most people in the political world understand that if someone supports their own party, that that's normal. Please.
Mayor, in your budget testimony, you talked a great deal about how the state was falling short of its obligations to the city. You also expressed reservations about some of the government's very key initiatives, especially teacher evaluations and closing schools. Do you still see the governor as an ally in your agenda?
The governor and I have gotten a lot done together. Again, there's some areas where, as I said in my testimony, we agree on a number of things. We have some areas of disagreement as well. That's not surprising. We've gotten a lot done together. I think a lot of his education agenda is right, and I support it. I think he's right on teacher accountability. But as I said, I think what's wrong on the agenda is putting more emphasis on state standardized testing, which I think takes us in the wrong direction. I also disagree with the concept of state receivership when we have already a mayoral control situation. So I think the way to think about it is here's a host of issues. I'm going to tell you what I think on each one. I think clear majority of the time the governor and I agree, but there's some areas where there's real disagreement as well.
On yesterday's suicide of the cherry factory owner in Brooklyn, I'm wondering what your reaction is to the fact that the Brooklyn DA's office failed to secure a handgun that was licensed to him before they initiated the search warrant. And I'm wondering whether you think the NYPD should have actually been involved in that.
I just don't know the details of the case, so I'd be happy to learn more about it and comment then, but I don't know, and I can't comment effectively now. Did you have one? Okay. Anything else? Yes, Sally?
I was wondering, since we're going off topic, could you comment on Rahm Emanuel's challenger? He's sort of being presented as like a progressive alternative to Rahm Emanuel.
I just don't know him. I don't know the details of what's happening out there. Yes.
In terms of the governor's emphasis on ethics this year in Albany, do you feel that that will detract from some of your goals for the city?
No, I think that, look, obviously some work has to be done here on ethics reform. And I've said very squarely that I think the city of New York, which had a long and lurid history of corruption problems for decades, spent decades, and I give Mayor Koch a lot of the credit for having taken some of the foundational steps, Speaker Vallone when he was Speaker of the City Council. A lot of pieces were put in place to guard against corruption. Very strong conflict of interest board, campaign finance board, public financing of elections. But that took years to develop, and now I think we have a very strong Department of Investigation. New York City is doing a lot better. We still have a lot to work on, but we're doing a lot better. I would say Albany needs to follow a similar path, and certainly public financing of elections is one of the best examples. If we don't get money out of the political process, we should not be surprised when some of these acts of corruption occur. So why don't we now take this moment to take a big step forward for this state and move to public financing of elections?
Last call, guys.
Mr. Mayor, are you planning to meet besides with the governor today with Speaker Hasty or Majority Leader Skelos?
We're trying to get meetings in with everyone. Still working. Everyone's got very tight schedules, but I'll be here for a while, so hopefully going to see everyone. Did I have one more over here? Going once, going twice. It's been great. Thank you.